So as students, you guys might find meeting scenarios difficult. And so how should you approach meeting scenarios? Wait for cars coming. What do you do? Do you stop? Do you wait? Do you go? What would the examiner want from you guys? So we're just going to show you a few meeting scenarios, and there's different ways to approach a meeting scenarios. If you're finding it hard to understand in a driving lesson how to approach a meeting scenario, what are the course of action, or if you're simply learning to drive or about to start to take driving lessons, then definitely watch the video to the end and it'll give you some idea how a driving lesson or even a driving test will be like and what the best course of action should be when you're approached with a car coming towards you in a tight road in a tight situation. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe for all the latest videos with all the top tips from myself, your fully qualified driving instructor. One of the first things you should be doing when you're driving is assessing the speed, the width of the road, how narrow it is, how many cars there are, is there cars on either side, are there any gaps? And then when you got that in your head calculated, you have to then consider wait for cars coming towards you and where would I wait? Where's my plan of action? And is that action going to help progress with my driving or is it going to impede on the road itself? So we've got a few different actions that we could take. But before we take the action, I would always say, always plan ahead, always assess the road. Once we've got an idea of the road, few actions that we can take. The first action should be check your mirrors, slow down if necessary. Then we got a few other calls we can make. We could either drive through slowly, but that decision might be risky because if the road's too narrow and you're too close to the cars on the left, and the space to wait, the examiner may decide it's too risky, we're gonna fail you. If there's a place to wait for the car, then definitely move to the side and wait for the car. Sometimes the gap is on the other road users. So the other car coming towards you, maybe there's a big gap on his left or on your right. If that's the case, you can wait opposite the gap and the car in front will squeeze in towards their left and come back out. So a few different actions that we can take. And we can even show you in this road here. So look, we got a gap on the left, massive gap. We can move to the side if necessary as we're driving. Look, there's gaps on the left here. There's gaps on the right, on your right, or the car coming towards you on their left. So you can carry on driving straight through, and the car coming towards you could go towards their left. Few different actions that one can take. Let's go through this road here. So we got a narrow road, park cars on both sides, as we discussed earlier on, which is look for a space on both sides so you can decide your plan of action, what to do if somebody does approach towards you. So here we can clearly see the student is slightly faster on the bend. And look, a car approached us and we luckily had the gap on the left. But I would say the mistake was there. We couldn't see at all. It was a bend. It's wet. We should have been slightly slower. If I was the examiner, I'll be slightly agitated on my toes. Here, unusual situation. We waited for the car, but the car now is waiting for us to get into this position here. Sometimes this happens when you're driving where you're being polite, you're waiting, but the guy in front of you is also trying to be polite, and it's really awkward now because we've already made the decision. The other guy in front should just go, but instead they're trying to be extra nice. Sometimes when someone's trying to be extra nice, it can be perplexing, baffling. You're like, you've already waited. Why is this guy now waiting? But it happens, and our student was quite quick to make the call instead and decided to go. In your case, you have to make the decisions yourself. So if you decided to carry on waiting, it's not a problem. If you're quite quick like my student and you decided to carry on going, you can. But the student, as I said, initial mistake was he was slightly fast around that bend. Here's a really good example of meeting scenario. So we just saw one where my student was slightly fast. Here, look, we've taken the opposite approach. Even though the road is slightly wider, we can see it's not a bend, it's straightforward. We're taking our time. We're not too slow, but we're not speeding through the road. We can see our car approaching. And look, we have ample enough of time to come to a smooth stop. We stopped opposite the gap. We could have gone to this gap on the left by slightly tight. So it's better to stop opposite the gap and this learner drive you can see going towards the left and carrying on. That way it was smooth, it was easy, and the examiner will be extremely happy with the decision made here. Again, in your driving test, on your driving lesson, look, you got parked cars on both sides. It's wet, it's miserable. People might be coming fast. We don't know what's happening. We should be thinking about planning ahead. We should be thinking about where are the gaps. Here's a gap on the left if a car was to come towards us. Like this red car, we're not sure what he's doing. It looks like he's parking up, and we carried on going. But we should be thinking about where are the gaps for us to stop or for the other cars to stop. Here's a really good example of none of the cars having to wait. So as we get there, we got gaps on our left. There's a car in front waiting, but they know they can push us in. So as we get in, they're pushing us. By getting into the middle of the road, we're going to move to the left, and we're just going to slowly drive through. That way, no drivers have to wait. But as we're driving, you'll notice a few things now. We got a bend coming up towards us. The way we'll know is the lines on the floor. So you can see these lines, therefore you have to move towards the right. As we get there, you'll notice, as we get there, the right seems quite clear. But watch what happens here. Our student comes to a stop. Maybe they couldn't see on the right because of the blue van. But once they get through, we got a gap on the left. Look how quickly the student had to make that decision. The van didn't want to wait. He quickly pushed us in, and we were forced to move to the left. We were quick enough to react. And look what happens again. This orange looking car, goldish looking car, was doing some maneuver, and again we had to be ready to react. Credit to the student to quickly react to the van driver and move to the left. There was a little gap to the left. Again, we couldn't see, but we were ready to make that decision. These are unusual situations and hazards that occur when you're driving, and in your test it could happen easily to any one of us. And as an examiner, we'll be extremely happy with the quick feet, the quick reaction, the correct decision, the safe decision, spotting things quickly and in advance and reacting to it. So again, credit to the student. The examiner will be extremely impressed with this action. Here we got a tight situation, a tight road with cars on one side of the road. If a car was approaching towards us, it's a two-way street. We have to think about where we're going to wait in a meeting scenario. So we had one on the right where a car could go in to his left or her left. And we got a little gap here on our left. And you can see a red car at the front there. And we did the right thing. We waited just in case if that car was to come towards us. But clearly they didn't. So we carried on. We check our mirrors and we carry on. And look at this bike. This is where it gets up to. As we're driving, it just randomly stops. Maybe it's a delivery driver, who knows. But now you have to be ready to react. Check your mirrors and gently brake. Now we don't know what's going on. He hasn't moved to the side. He's not pulling over. Now he's moving off again. So check your mirrors. If this happens in your test, you have to deal with it. You have to deal with an unusual situation, a bike randomly stopping in the middle of the road. What do we do? Do we horn? Do we tell him to hurry up, move out the way? No, we just gradually come to a stop and then anticipate what their next move is. They may decide, as he did, to move off again. So that was a few examples of how to deal with meeting scenarios. We had real life examples in a driving lesson, and which you might experience in your driving lessons yourself or even in your driving test. We've showed you a few different ways of how to react and how not to react. Please guys, don't forget to show some love, like, share and subscribe. It's only a button, but it makes a big difference to our channel. We've got so many videos to help you in your driving lessons, in your driving tests, in your theory tests, how to impress the driving examiners, how to pass your driving test first time from your fully qualified driving instructor FM.